What's up guys, this is another team building video. This time I built around Scarf Nihilego with the help of my friends Tennis and Bengay. This team got to number 1 on the Genesect Suspect ladder. This was my ult, and I went 42 wins and 6 losses, so this team is quite solid. I originally came up with the idea of using Scarf Nihilego because I wanted to HP fire some Scarf Genesects that thought they could just iron hit me or U-turn out for free. But since Genesect is probably going to be banned soon, we have HP Ice T-Bolt instead of HP Fire Dazzling Gleam. But you can use some different coverage moves on Nihilego if you want to try them. I just think this is the best, and Grass Knot is another option to consider. But we have Breloom to take advantage of all of Grass Knot's targets, so yes, hopefully it's okay to not have Grass Knot. But yeah, this Pokemon's great. It's probably a B rank Pokemon at best. But it's just really interesting. It's got so much special defense, so it can switch into Zard Y and Volcarona and check them. It can take a Life Orb Hydro from Greninja. So it takes Rotom's Hydro like easily. It only does 55 or something. And yeah, this just switches into a bunch of... Well, it doesn't really switch into all that much, but it's mainly used as a revenge killer and late game sweeper with Beast Boost, which just gives it +1 special attack with every KO it gets. So, for example, after 2 Stealth Rock switch-ins, Kartana dies 2+1 Power Gem, which, yeah, it's just really easy to set up a sweep with this thing if you can identify, a weakness to it in your opponent's team. You just have, and that'll come with practice. Like, you just have to see a double weather team like T-Tar, Excadrill, Char-Y, etc., and think, oh, I can beat this team with Power Gem if I take the Excadrill out. So, yeah, just be trying to develop a win condition from turn 1. Like, this team has, I guess, Nihilego, Lander, and Breloom as win conditions, and then Metagross and Breloom as breakers, and Landorus can be a breaker sometimes, so you just need to try to allocate roles to each Pokemon as soon as you can. Like, I don't see people doing this with my team because I haven't watched enough people use this team, but sometimes people will be using it, even a team they made, and they have a switch in, or in their mind they have a switch into a Pokemon. Like, imagine I'm in a game and the opponent has a Landorus T as their ground resist, and then everything else is susceptible to Earthquake, by which I mean it doesn't resist Earthquake. So in that game you would have a great chance of winning with this, because at +1 I'm pretty sure Z-Fly would OHKO even a defensive Landorus, and then you might just be able to sweep later after a Rock Polish. But some people might choose to switch this into, like, I don't know, Metagross on the opponent's team, and they'll take this Meteor Mash and just take 80%, and then they won't have their win condition. So just try to think of which Pokemon is your win condition, how important the HP is on each Pokemon as soon as you start playing, because that'll help you develop a successful win condition more consistently. But back to this guy. I really said what I needed to. It checks like Zardex in addition to the other fire types I mentioned. Even at +1, it's faster than Garchomp, so the only Scarfers you're really scared of in terms of speed are Pheromosa and Scarflatti. But yeah, there's not really much else to say about this. I just chose this Pokemon for irrational reasons because I really like it. But it actually turned out to be quite effective on this team. We thought we could pair that with a Whirlpool trapping Tapu Fini, so imagine it has Whirlpool instead of Defog, which is a Bengay idea. Whirlpool lets it trap Chansey, Toxapex, passive Waters, passive Steals. Even if the water has Water Absorb, you can Taunt and Nature's Madness them to really hassle them. This is just such a good set. Taunt Nature's Madness turns a fairly passive Pokemon into something very capable of performing an active role. We really needed Defog in the end to support Marowak. Like, this is why I haven't used Alolan Marowak yet. It's got such a crippling Stealth Rock weakness, but we have a reliable Defogger, so it's okay to use Marowak here. Some people might be wondering why it's Moonblast over Surf. Please don't change it. I saw one guy steal the team and he was using Surf on this, which means he is much, much weaker to Sableye, Zygarde, Buzzwole, like a whole host of things, so Moonblast is better there. This will be your lead against Stall, because you can either Moonblast or Nature's Madness the Sableye on turn 1. They will probably protect initially and then try to knock you off because of how annoying this is to stall. So be aware that they'll try to knock off your leftovers. You can go for a Moonblast or a Nature's Madness, and like every time I play Stall, the Sableye is at 50% on turn 2, and then they switch to Toxapex. The Sableye being at 50 means there's a very easy chance to get rocks up with Marowak. But the new Nature's Madness, the Toxapex, by then there's not much Misty Terrain left. You need to be very conscious of Misty Terrain turns against Stall, because they'll prevent your Breloom and Metagross and stuff from getting burnt by Toxapex's Scald. But it will also prevent Breloom from putting stuff to sleep, unless it's a Skarmory, because that's flying, so it's not aided by terrains. But yes, against Stall you want to do a lot of hassling with this, like Nature's Madness, taunt the Toxapex, and then you can go into Breloom before the Misty Terrain expires, take a Scald, and put something to sleep, and then it's probably going to be Skarmory, and then like that gives Marowak the free switch in to get rocks up, or probably just go for an Earthquake on the Skarmory to hit the Toxapex on the way in, and then you can just go for like another Earthquake or a Shadow Bone, or go for rocks if you don't think they're going to Sableye. But this team, unlike a lot of my teams, has some very well-developed stall-breaking Pokemon. Like, again, you need to be aware of what your win condition is. So some stalls will just have nothing for Breloom. I've played one stall, which I think is quite bad. It has Tapu Bulu and Quagsire and some other stuff. You might have seen it on the ladder, but yeah, Breloom just ended up winning on like turn 5, so be aware of what Pokemon is best to use as your win con, but a lot of stall will struggle to deal with Marowak, so just bring it in as much as possible. It can't be trapped by Dugtrio, which is fantastic, so yes, I think if you play this team right, you will be good against stall. Now, one alternate move option is using Knockoff here over Earthquake on Marowak. That might sound weird, but it actually makes the team better against Toxapex stall. If it's Toxapex on like a balanced team, Earthquake is probably better. But on stall, if you knock off the leftovers, you'll be able to weaken the Toxapex down much lower, well, meaningfully lower with Tapu Fini. Because a lot of people will just leave Toxapex in until it gets way down to like 20%, 15% against Tapu Fini. But that's still not in range after the turns of leftovers of Metagross's Pursuit. But if you knock off their leftovers, you can go into this and weaken them right down, and then switch Metagross in while Misty Terrain is still up, so you can't get burnt. And as long as they're at 22% or less, this Pursuit will kill them when they try to switch. So that's a useful little thing against stall. If you want to run knockoff, you'll probably do better against stall, but Earthquake I think is probably better overall. This spread is just fast enough for Rotom and Landorus T so that you can control the hazard game better. So if you think about a Landorus T versus Fini situation, if the Landorus is faster, it can go for Stealth Rock before you can defog. So it goes for Stealth Rock as you switch in, it Earthquakes you as you defog, it Earthquakes you again, and then like on the turn you kill it, it gets rocks up, and then you might have to deal with rocks. But with this set, you are in control. You can taunt the Lando before it gets rocks up. You can defog before it can, hit you. So yeah, that's a better way to deal with rocks. And then against Rotom, you can like taunt to prevent a Pain Split or whatever. Because this team is like somewhat annoyed by Rotom, so that's why another reason to have Breloom to abuse that. But yeah, please play 5 games with this team and then tell me this isn't the best Tapu Fini set you've ever seen. Physically defensive other than the speed, and then I think this just hits a jump point, so you'll notice that's 339, but then with 4 more EVs you get 2 defense points, and then Ben just wanted some Spit F for something. He can't remember what it is, but yeah, this set's been putting in good work. It's the main switch in for like Ash Greninja. Gunk Shot Gren is kind of annoying, but this checks it decently. And Breloom checks it as well, so there are ways around basically everything. Baton Pass might be a little bit problematic. I thankfully played 48 games on the Suspect ladder without seeing it, so that was nice. But I haven't played out a game against B Pass, so that might be an instant loss. I don't know. What else is this for? I said it was for Sableye, Buzzwole, and Zygarde. Those are fairly important OU mons. And just the Misty Surge ability is so good just to protect important things from burns and stuff like that. You can really be clever with Misty Surge. Next we wanted something for Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele is such a common and good Pokemon, and so we wanted something that could abuse it, but we didn't want to build a boring defensive team with Celesteela, so we used Metagross instead. Now, because this is our main Tapu Lele switch in, we really wanted Pursuit, because if you just let it get away every time, you probably will lose in the end anyway, so Pursuit's absolutely crucial. This is also very, very important for Mega Alakazam, which otherwise kind of shreds the team. You might look at the team and say, wow, this loses to Calm Mind Alakazam at +1. The only thing that can Calm Mind on is Tapu Fini, and this even lives a +1 Psychic, so you can get off 2 Nature's Madnesses. As long as they don't like Calm Mind Recover Alakazam, you'll be okay, because you'll be able to get off enough damage to put it in range of Nihilego, so just be mindful of Alakazam. Mega Metagross is a big threat to this team as well. And while I'm on weaknesses, I'll just mention Tapu Bulu too. That's quite a threat, which is why another reason for having Balloon, because it can like abuse Grassy Surge. So despite Bulu's typing, walling, Breloom's typing, +2 Bullet Seed in grassy terrain with a Life Orb is going in quite hard. And that's why we have Jolly on this to outspeed Adamant Bulu. But back to this set, we also need Earthquake for Mega Metagross because it's like such a problem. This might take a long time to explain, but you might want to try to make the opponent think your Metagross can't hit their designated switch in early game. So that, yeah, this is way too specific, but say your opponent has like a Landorus T. You might want to lead with Metagross and let them scout for Ice Punch. So you want to show them that their switch in beats Metagross. And then later on, this is if they have a Metagross on their team. Later on, they'll be more likely to switch their Metagross out rather than risk the Earthquake speed tie, so you can Pursuit them more reliably there. But yeah, I think we need both Earthquake and Pursuit just for Metagross, but it so happens that we also really need Pursuit for Psychics like Lati as well. Again though, you need to be mindful of Metagross's HP, so you might not want to switch this in to Alakazam if they also have Lati or vice versa, although that might just be a loss. Like, that's probably too much psychic pressure. I don't think I've lost to Alakazam once, so yeah, this team can definitely deal with it, just be very careful about it. Other than that, we really need Meteor Mash, because this is just like a great move on Metagross to spam. It's very powerful, has a good secondary effect. And then I think on a Pursuit set like this, you really need Zen Headbutt, just as a secondary strong neutral stab option to hit things and not be walled by too many Pokemon. So another option is Thunder Punch here instead of Zen Headbutt, which makes Celesteela and Skarmory easier to deal with. They are quite annoying, but I think Zen is probably the best just for like neutral coverage on Rotom, neutral coverage on a bunch of stuff, and also because this is our Tapu Lele abuser, you can fire off Zen Headbutts in Psychic Terrain, and that is just an absolute bomb. Like, nothing wants to take that. So I really recommend sticking with this Metagross set, but if you really want to change something, you can use Thunder Punch over Zen. Don't use Ice Punch. Lando and stuff that you would want Ice Punch for are far less pertinent than the targets of Zen Headbutt. So yeah, that's those three covered. Then we have Marowak. This was actually put in last, so maybe I should explain it later. Let's move on to Lando. This is just like a fantastic offensive win condition or breaker. In every game, you should be very disappointed if Zed Fly doesn't get a kill. It is such a ridiculous move. But yeah, this is just important as like a ground immunity. It was originally a defensive Lando, but we decided with the help of Ben Gay that we needed a more offensive Pokemon here, because the team was actually really passive to begin with, but I don't want to go into the history of the team too much because it's not interesting or important. So yeah, we ended up making this offensive. You can try Stone Edge with Rockinium or whatever that thing is, Zed, instead of the Fly combo, because that will let you deal with Skarmory and Celesteela much better, which is especially useful against Stall, although you might argue that Fly is just as useful because that lets you beat Shedinja Stall more. No, it doesn't. Nope, I think the Rock one would actually be better against Shedinja Stall too. So yeah, that's something you can really consider. We haven't tried the Rock one too much, we just went with the Fly one because it's stronger. But Fly is a little bit of a burden after you've used the Z move. Like, it's still perfectly fine to use, but they can pivot into their, like, Magnezone or their T-Tar on your Fly. As in, they can go to, like, something that would bait a Fly, and then pivot into their Flying Resist that is weak to Earthquake and revenge kill you that way, so that's a little bit annoying. But yeah, I don't actually have that much to say about this other than ground immunity. It abuses opposing Landos, which is nice. and yeah, you will get a kill with this in every game, if not more. This Pokemon is ridiculous. I've got max speed Jolly just because you can be really, really clever and run like just enough for Excadrill, but then you're slower than like opposing Lando that run max speed, and you're slower than PZ, so Porygon Z, so it's definitely worth just running Jolly max speed here because you'll feel a lot more confident just hard switching this into opposing offensive Landos. Then, yeah, we wanted Breloom as a way to compensate for no Grass Knot here. It abuses Tapu Bulu, kind of. Like, I'm still not okay with saying this, because I think Bulu probably OHKOs this with Woodhammer, but this can take advantage of a Bulu being on the opposing team for sure, because grassy terrain really helps Breloom. Just a really hard Pokemon to switch into. Like, yeah, Spore puts something to sleep. This set has just been putting in huge work in every game. I mentioned why we needed Jolly, but this thing is just so good in Sun and Moon. I was so surprised by how effective it was. Yeah, that feels like a lot less than I said about the first Mons, but Breloom and Lando were kind of last-minute additions, as well as Marowak, so I have less to say about why they were there. We also made this team like 2 weeks ago, so I'm sorry if I'm foggy on some of the details. But then we really needed Rocks, a Tapu Koko switch in, another like Bolt Beam resist would be good. Pheromosa was looking a bit threatening, so Marowak just fit the bill perfectly, and it's also like a great offensive Pokemon to help deal with stall. We had a faster spread. This one is a bit stupid because it's just enough speed for Sassy Celesteela, which is what the ones with Heavy Slam and Flamethrower run. But we only really need to outspeed Celesteela if they have Earthquake, and those ones don't run Sassy because they run Heavy Slam Earthquake, so this set is a little bit dumb. But you outspeed Chansey with this spread as well, although you could run a little bit less speed to do that, like probably 48, 44 would do it. We got 68 for now. And outspeeding Chansey is nice because you can pressure them a lot more with Fire Punch. It doesn't 2-hit KO, I don't think it does like 37, 38%, somewhere around there. But you can force much more soft boils by just being faster than it. So that's nice. Another thing against stall, don't let this get knocked off by Sableye. Even if it means you get to kill the Sableye, losing your thick club just makes you like useless against stall instead of being the main stall breaker. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say about this. Marowak, I guess, okay, against opposing Metagross, you probably want to lead with Tapu Fini and hit them with a Nature's Madness, because they'll stay into Medium Mash you, like, that's a better position for them than you. They can't really afford to, like, Earthquake the next turn, so I usually hard switch into Metagross, and then depending on the rest of their team, I'll go for Earthquake or Pursuit, usually just Earthquake to be safe, but like, if they have a Lando T, they might be more likely to switch out, so consider Pursuiting there. Against Hooper U, if they, if they double on a Tapu Fini switch that's obvious, like for example if they have Heatran versus well, Heatran actually just like loses to the whole team. Say you're locked into Sludge Wave and they bring in Heatran, and then they double to Hooper as you go to Tapu Fini. That's very suspicious, because your Tapu Fini is such an obvious switch in, so why would they double to Hooper unless they had Gunk Shot? So then you just hard switch into Metagross and you just go right for Pursuit, because Meteor Mash is an OHKO and they're not going to stay in, so Hooper is a stupid Pokemon, but that's a nice way that I've used to deal with Hooper. This team actually is quite good against Hooper, although Marowak gives it free Dark moves, which is bad. Yeah, you really want to just be... I think this team has the potential to teach people how to play well, because so many times when I lost, I realized afterwards that I could have like played differently and won, and particularly against stall, it'll take you a little while to really work out how to beat stall, but this team can do it, like with Misty Terrain helping Breloom not to get burnt, with Pursuit just to get more damage on like Chansey and stuff that Metagross forces out. It definitely has the tools, especially with Marowak, to beat a stall team. I think that's basically it, guys. I just paused and went over what I'd said and edited in some stuff. The only thing I really want to say is that when rocks are up, you should be very apprehensive about switching Marowak in, like if they have their Pheromosa. you might want to use Tapu Fini. Like, they're almost definitely U-turning if you have Marowak, so just be aware that you can abuse that fact and be quite confident that they'll U-turn with Pheromosa. They're not going to high jump kick with this switch in that's a ghost in the back. And another thing you should be aware of is if their team is very weak to Breloom, they will lead with something that beats Sash Breloom, because otherwise they're conceding a Spore and potentially not even breaking Breloom's Sash. So just look at their team. They're going to look at your team and see Breloom as a very likely lead. Breloom is one of those Pokemon that just has this lead quality to it because Focus Sash Spore is pretty good. So if they have a slow team with Pheromosa, they'll probably lead with Pheromosa to like U-turn and break the Sash in the process, so you can abuse that by leading with Marowak and getting rocks up. I'm not sure whether I'll make a video using this team. Just let me know whether you want to see that. I'm sure most of you would, but I don't know, I've used this team a lot already, and it'll be interesting to see Pokebank come out in the next few days, hopefully, to see whether the new Megas, or the old Megas rather, are allowed again. Because this team might not be valid once like Metacham and everything is unleashed again. But yes, if you want to see a showdown live with this team, just show some support on this video. I would appreciate it a lot. So yeah, I hope you all enjoy using this team. I hope this explanation lets you use it effectively, and I will see you next time. Thanks again for watching.